Welcome, bet riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laidback Bike Report. All right. I didn't hear any sound. I don't know what happened there, but we're going to go on with the show. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you with us here today. Interesting show ahead with some great guests. So I hope you enjoy yourselves today, and we will take you through it. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about what's going to go on in today's show. We have John Morciglio, the legendary bent race designer, on with us today. We're excited to talk to John. Doug Davis is here with us today, and he has got a bombshell of an announcement about a new trike. So I hope you'll stay with us for that. Tim Cain is with us as always, and Tim actually is going to bring us a segment with an update on his Glide, his titanium long wheelbase bike that we talked about a few months ago. He's got some modifications on that I think you're going to be interested to hear about. And he was at the Iowa Bike Show last weekend, and he's going to talk to us about what he saw there, some interesting developments as well. Denny is with us here with the sports, as always. We're going to have some announcements. Brian is not with us today, unfortunately, but I believe he'll be back next month. So at this point, let me introduce you to the guys that help me out every month, make this show what it is. We've got a bunch of them with me today. First of all, from Salzgitter, Germany, our show director, it is Lars Kamm. Hello, Lars.
Hi, folks.
And in Jackson, Mississippi, our media man, it's Trey Burgoyne. Hi, Trey.
What up, folks? Good to be here.
Yeah, Brian's not here to do the Burgoyne.
So they did it anyways. That's important. We mentioned Tim Cain, and Tim is with us from Des Moines, Iowa. He's going to be doing some of the moderating of our live chat and that segment. So hi there, Tim.
And I did click on this file. It didn't play.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what that. We're gonna work on that. We have from his palatial digs, his summer home in Floral City, Floral City, Florida. It's our sports director. It's Denny Voorhees. Hey, Denny.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? We're just about 300 yards off the Withlacoochee Trail, and a little chilly today, but beautiful sunshine.
Chilly. Very nice to hear. And a couple of guys we brought back we haven't had actually on the show for a while. Glad to have them on. First of all, Larry Varney is with us. Let's bring Larry up, doing a little shuffling. Larry, hey.
Hi. Good to be here.
And Larry number 2, Larry Seidman, also is with us today, and he and the other Larry are going to both do some of the chat moderations today. So, hi, Larry Seidman.
Hello, number 2 here.
Great to have both of you with us again. So, all right, guys, let me just take care of a couple of pieces of business here. I want to make sure that you all remember that we run the live chat sessions along with this live video, both on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you are watching us live right now, please join in, participate. We've got a bunch of people on here already who have done so. So chat with your fellow bent riders. You can ask questions of our guests or of our panelists. We love having the interaction. So make sure that you do that. Oh, yeah. And by the way, also let us know where you're from. We always like to hear where you are watching from. If you would, please like, subscribe, and you can learn more about what the Laidback Bike Report is all about by clicking that little white eye in the upper right-hand corner up there. It'll take you to our website. Lots more information there. So as I mention on every show, our sponsors are what makes this show a possibility. They are wonderful, and let me tell you who they are. First of all, TerraCycle, makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent. And trailside.bike, a fine recumbent bike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida. And Cruise Bike, designed for the cyclist who wants to ride farther, climb faster, and adventure more. All cruise bikes and frame sets ship free in the USA. And TerraTrike. Wherever your ride leads, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. Be sure to follow TerraTrike on Facebook for information on the TerraTrike Hot Winter Promo. All right, guys, we're going to get right into the meat of the show, and I'm going to do so by introducing our featured guests. When you ask recumbent racing athletes about their short list of elite custom builders, there's one name that keeps popping up. John Morciglio has been designing sleek, competitive recumbent bikes for years. Many consider his creations a triumph of both form and function, leading to something like guru status amongst his clients. So let me welcome the guru himself to the Laidback Bike Report. It's John Morciglio. Hello, John.
Hello, Gary. Hello from Denver. So
it's great to have you with us. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, so we're very excited to have you on.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Let's start out with a very basic question, and I want to know how you got involved in building racing bikes.
Well, I was riding along at the popular trail in Michigan by Kensington Island Lake. I was doing about 22.5 miles an hour on my 16-pound Uber bike, brand new set of zip wheels and some tubulars glued on, and this thing came flying by me up the hill at about 30. Had no idea what it was. Thought it might have been a kid on a go-kart, thought I saw pedals. It ended up being Chris Evans on a no-com, and I couldn't catch him, but I finally saw him at a turnaround, and I said, that's the coolest thing I ever seen, since I have a screwed up back and a hip replacement and motorcycle accident. So I said, how much was it? And he said, well, I paid $7,700 for the frame. It came with a cut down front hub, no rim, no spokes, just a cut down front hub in the fork. And I said, wow, I think I'm going to try and build one of those. So that's how I got started. When I saw that bike, that was it. I had to try.
All right. So that's where it all got started. So that's where the first one came from. And we're going to talk about 10 different kinds of bikes and trikes that you have designed. And so since that time, you've come up with a lot of different things. We're going to show all of them, but I'm wondering, where do these other design concepts come from? You had the no-com, that was your first inspiration. Where do your inspirations come from?
It's so funny because at first I thought, well, this low racer is the only thing I want to do. It's the only thing I think is cool. All other recumbents are lame. I don't want to build anything else. And then I built the mid racer with a, more like a Fujin or the M2. And it's kind of funny. Then I saw the moving bottom brackets and I had a customer. That was actually because somebody contacted me and said, what do you think about building one? So I started sketching those up in 2008 and built one. And it just seems like that led to the Apache with the bigger front wheel, because all the road guys that I rode with, they couldn't stand the low racer. It was so fast. But when I rode with them with something with a bigger front wheel, they all seemed to accept it. And I thought, well, I don't like any dual 700s, but maybe if I build one, maybe I'll like it better if I design something I think is cool. And that seems like every time it's like I think that's all I got, and then I just sort of branch off, and I either want to make something faster or something a little different or something a little cooler. So I don't know how new ones keep popping up, but
it sounds like mostly from experience, from riding them and from customers talking to you. You're just always kind of iterating for the next design. Is that
right?
Fair to say? All right. The next big part that strikes me about what you do is that you seem to work almost exclusively, if not exclusively, with carbon fiber. And I'm wondering why that is your primary material, and have you considered using, whatever, fiberglass or metal or whatever?
Fiberglass has nasty microscopic hooks in it, and it's something I don't even build molds from fiberglass. I don't want it in the shop, because if you breathe in fiberglass, it's never coming out of your lungs. Or carbon, you don't want to breathe it in, but it's carbon fibers. And the epoxy resins I use are real low VOCs. They're Boeing mil spec resins. And so I do work with aluminum. I do have a sort of a machine shop. I started manufacturing Harley parts and attempted to make a go at that. In 2007, I set up a small machine shop, and I've always worked with wood. I've always built guitars and, specialize in winding handrail, radius raised panel cabinets, and lots of bent wood, some boats, some, racing kayaks. And so never wanted to do anything out of tubing, aluminum, any metal, just carbon. You can sculpt and sketch and build any shape, and they're a lot more aerodynamic than anything else. So I think that's why I like carbon fiber.
Makes sense. Okay, so with that, I think maybe this would be a good time to hop into the slideshow. So Lars, can you hit that first bike? And basically, John and I are going to kind of page through these slides that we put together. I want to thank the folks that sent us many of these pictures, and I've got them attributed at the bottom, so you know. The first one is a good friend of the show, Larry Osland, who's been on the show a few times. And this is his magic, or I should say John's design magic. And so, John, let's start out with the magic. This is not by any means the first thing you did. It's one of your more recent designs, I know. But let's talk about the magic first, if we could.
It's actually the latest bike, and it was designed for cruise bike and Larry specifically for racing, to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest thing out there that I could possibly build. Again, still trying to go further, faster. And so the Parkers got together with Larry, and we got kind of collaborated. And so that bike technically is a cruise bike. Hopefully I know Larry and Kyle will be riding them at Sebring coming up, and hopefully Jim and, hopefully a couple more. I think there's a couple more there that I hope they all ride the Magic and consider it a cruise bike, because I certainly do.
All right, let's go on to the next shot. All right, and this is kind of a special shot. It's sent to us from Blazing Pedals via Bent Rider. But tell us about this. You're in this, right?
Nostalgia, yep. That's me to the far right on my screen. Chris Evans to the left, the guy that went blown by me on that no-com. That's Don. I forgot Don Fox. I forgot his last name. Don Airwolf. And then John Foltz is on the far left, and those three are all on no-coms. And I think John's the broken frame that Chris kept breaking frames, and they ended up, being, I don't know if they purchased them after they broke and patched them up or whatever. But yeah, that was back in that's probably 2008, and there's some video on that. It's called Low Racers at Stony Creek. And I think Mike Mowat took the picture, and yeah, that was a good day. We probably rode 60, 80 miles that day around that park. It's a 6-mile loop. We probably did 10 loops, and good time.
Very good. Let's go to the next one. All right. So you mentioned the Apache. Tell us about the Apache.
I want to say that was the M1, then the M2, then the first Hammerhead. And because the big wheels were so popular with the race club that I was the club I was riding with at the track and stuff, the road racing club, then I decided I liked Z-frame high racers, and I should build one. I should make it sexy and fast and not worry about crank overlap, but worry about being as aerodynamic as possible. And you need to lower the crank to do that. You need to hide your fork crown and lower the boom. I call it lowering the boom and hiding your crown. So yeah, that's a very fast bike. I'd put that bike against any other dual 700 on the planet. The aerodynamics are, when you coast down with that bike, it just really, it really shines. So, yep.
All right.
Need to redesign that one too. So, yep, that Hammerhead, that's the first one. It was built for Guy. That one was high seat angle, low bottom bracket, designed for touring and climbing. Not designed for all-out aerodynamics, but he wanted a tail box because it was, I think they called it randoneering. Is that the thing where they brevets maybe? I don't know. So the guy, but then that original customer said he lost his job, and back then I wasn't really charged enough. I wasn't sure how long they took to make, and so I let the guy, I sent him his deposit back, and was kind of glad I did, because I I think I had it a year or two and ended up selling it for more money used than than I was charging the original customer. So yep, that was one of there's two of them like that. There's only two of them with those molds, and then there was one that the guy never sent pictures of that had a higher bottom bracket and lower seat that was made for more for more speed and more aerodynamics. So that one was more of a touring high seat angle, 28, 30 degrees, level bottom bracket, made for strictly for comfort, climbing, and I actually found it fairly easy to ride after I spent a little bit of time on rollers with it. So I don't think I would have got out on the road and did very well, but I actually used rollers and had them running live, where originally I attached the front wheel so that it was fixed, but that wasn't doing me any good. So then I put a brace on the back wheel, held that in place till I got the hang of the front end. Then I finally just ditched both the braces and just started riding it on the rollers in the sunroom in Michigan, and actually rode it very well and really taught me to pedal smooth. And at the time I wasn't convinced they were the climbing magic that the front wheel drive people like. I just thought it used a lot of energy, but still a fun bike and a nice handling bike, and proud of that bike.
Very good. All right. So yeah, now so this this is going to take a little time. You know what? Let's pause here while everyone stares at this for a second. And actually, Lars, if you can come back to the two shot of me and John, I think maybe it's time, John, if we talk about the process, your building process a little bit. I've got a couple questions. Let's start with those, and then I'm going to ask you really what the process is like. So here's Obtain a Signature, who's asking about why carbon fiber is so expensive. It's only knitting and glue, he says. and such. So tell us, if you wouldn't mind, tell us about the cost of carbon fiber compared to other materials, first of all.
So I buy 50 yards at a time, and I have a supplier that gives me a 100-yard price. So I get a really good price on 6K. I use specifically heavier materials. So I'm going to use less layers of fabric. Instead of 6 layers of 3K, I can use 3 layers of 6K. But so yes, the fabric is very expensive. If you guys went out and bought it, you could spend anywhere from $40 to $60 a yard. And one of those bikes probably has about $1,200 in raw material in it, and that would include resins, cups, gloves, brushes, all kinds of disposable, paper towels and what have you. But to go buy tubes, you know what I mean? You buy metal, you buy chromoly, titanium, or aluminum. You just got this stock of tubes somebody else manufactured. You cut them up, you miter them. You can build a frame like that in a matter of hours. Where the process with carbon fiber, I'm kind of answering your question of why it's so expensive and what the process is.
Yeah, let's. Well, here's Gustavo Cutala says, "Is it molded?" So let's use that to talk about the process. So tell us how, in general, you go about creating these bikes.
I'll start with the small sketches. They're to scale, and so I start on a regular, graph paper, and I'll sketch a few different sketches. Sometimes I'll end up with 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 sketches. Sometimes I like what I see right away, and then I'm old school. I don't do anything on the computer. I mean, I used to make some Harley parts at a friend's shop and in bone arrow parts, stuff like that, out of machined aluminum. But so I'll start with a small sketch, then I'll go to a 4x8, a full size sheet on a sheet of plywood, because then you can draw your chain line better. You can actually lay the bike out, and that dual 700. I'm a really short guy, but I can still set that bike up with no crank overlap, 152 cranks, and I'm a little 30-inch inseam. So then I go to the full size sketch. If I like that, I get that sketch, I revise it, review it, go over it a few days. I'll cut that out of the 1/4-inch plywood. That becomes a template. Now I'll use either tooling foam or 2, 3, 5, 6 sheets of MDF layers, and I'll make plugs. And from the plugs, I make molds, and from there you make a bike. So there's no shortcuts. There's no molding over foam. It's basically design, and then I go to plugs, then to molds. And I like to keep the plugs around because you can lay the carbon on the plugs when you're cutting the carbon before you lay it into the mold, the female mold. So when you're laying it over the male mold, you can really get a sense of how things are going to go, and really get a sense, to try to get your weaves going the way you want and make it as clean as possible. So plugs, molds, parts, no foam core, no, there's no shortcuts, there's no easy. I just try and work fast, and I kind of get on a hyper-focused mission and kind of get it done until I got bikes going.
And you mentioned to me when we were setting the show up, I think you said something about how you felt like your procedure has improved. You've become more efficient because of how many you've done. So you noticed that, yes?
Oh, certainly. And even, I started out, it's like the guy was talking about his trike and testing the parts. Well, I built houses for years, and we know point loads, we know these things. There's general rules of thumb. And when I built the upright bikes, I kind of looked at I kind of studied, aluminum tubing. You could buy carbon tubing, and kind of based my stuff on wall thicknesses and matched it. But I don't feel the need to test so much, because if you use a good process, a known proven process. Everybody says my bikes are built overly, stiff and too stiff, and I do tend to like add 20% fudge factor to make sure they're not going to break on somebody. So I see a bladder molding question.
Yeah, he's asking, do you use bladders for the molds?
I do not. I don't. Closed molds with bladders in Formula One racing and the aerospace industry are considered a closed and or dumb and or 3 or 4 other derogatory names. The reason is because you can't see what's going on until the only way to verify that those are safe and everything's good and you don't have wrinkles in the bladder and wrinkles in the material, excess resin, is by actually x-raying the parts. So the reason they do those, and those are good for, the bike companies and stuff, you notice they put a bike in and it cures in a half hour. So you can use a bladder and get one big complicated part with the bladder, whereas I build with the 2.5 system and a flange, and I don't even know if people know that or not, but I chose that system in the beginning. Fighter planes, even regular passenger aircraft, and Formula One cars, lots of stuff are monocoque that are parts that are bonded together with structural adhesive, and that way I have complete control. I see the part when I pull it out. So no bladders. I have messed around with like handlebars and stuff like that, and I have played around with just some rudimentary bladders, but there's really nothing. Even the guitars, everything I make from carbon fiber Harley parts, there's nothing I need bladders for because yep. So
okay. And Sven's asking, do you paint the plug with epoxy?
The plug, if I use tooling foam, I'll use it's really nasty stuff, but it works really good. I'm having can't remember the name of it right now, but it's a surface primer, a surfacing primer. It goes on really thick, like 44 mils thick. And so if I'm using foam, it'll cover, it'll cover 80 grit scratches, but so sort of yes, sort of no. If I use MDF, and I'm using that for the plug because it's way less expensive than the tooling foam, then I take regular epoxy. I actually add carbon graphite powder to it, and I'll coat that plug with the epoxy to get a finished coat. So if that's the question, I'm not sure. But yes, so the plug itself, once it's finished, it only gets covered with parting wax. But during some of the plug making process, I'd love to use the tooling foam. I can shape it much better. It's not as toxic as MDF. It's all still nasty and dusty, but so building the plug, I'll use epoxy. If it's MDF or wood, if it's tooling foam, I use that surfacing primer. So.
All right. Lars, can you bring Doug up? Doug has messaged me here saying he's got a roll of carbon fiber. Do you still have it, Doug?
Yeah, I've got it. I was just laughing because I have one sitting here that we use for velomobiles. John, does this look familiar?
Yeah, except for my rolls are about 24 inches in
Yeah,
diameter, but
yeah,
other than
well,
that, yeah.
$300 right here in my hands.
Yeah. So that tells that'll tell the guys
That'll
that
tell your story right there.
yep.
There we go. Thank you, Doug. All right. So let's see. A couple more questions here for you, John. There we go. John, are you still with us here, dude?
Yes, and I do not. I've built for 340-pound guys, 6'9". There's an Apache for a guy in I can't remember now if he's in Houston or Dallas. I think there's more of them in Houston. I think there's probably 5 of them around the Houston. But so I will, if a customer calls and he's a big guy like that, again, I basically would add 1 layer of material and you'd be good to go. Wheels, like the guy was talking about his trike earlier, wheels are your biggest variable with a 300-pound rider. What wheels are you going to use on a bike that are safe? So you're going to need a 32 spoke or more, strong rims, strong spokes, and you're not going to break one of my frames, but the wheels are going to be your main concern.
All right. One more question here on see if you want to answer this one. I never heard of a joggle, but
that's exactly what I call it. It's considered a joggle in the aircraft industry, and that's exactly what I use. Right. And I have built the joggle into the mold. Now, when you do that, you've got a smaller part, so that has to be a separate piece. I stopped doing that, and the reason why is because it's better to build the joggle into 1/2. It's lighter. It's possibly stronger than the adhesive, but you get a little bit of roundness, so I don't get this tight, crisp line where I join the 2 halves together and they look like they grew together. It's like a tight joint in woodworking and joinery. So I stopped doing the joggle in the mold. Now, that bike you had up, that was the trike that's designed to be a frame to go inside a velomobile that I was designing, that bike always has the joggle or parting flange or the gluing flange in the mold, because that frame I can actually build in 2 days. I can mold a half in each. I actually mold both halves in 1 day. I can be gluing the second day. I don't have to make the joggles. The other joggles or flanges, I actually compression mold and make them on separate molds so they fit real nice. They're real strong, and that adds structure to the spar.
All right, here's a performance question, and then we're going to move back to the trike there and move along. So I don't know if you use power meters or have talked to people that do. So how many kilometers an hour would you reach, or miles per hour, whichever, on 250 watts? Do you know that on a Magic, or you have some idea?
I do not. You'd have to go to Larry. I can tell you on an M1, I've had a 155-pound guy. He was actually a major rep for Specialized. And at 220 watts, he was going 29.5 miles an hour. He said that's some of the fastest. They've never tested anything at Specialized anywhere near those numbers. So that was with an M1. It's quite a few years ago. I sold it to a rep. I called him Dave Diamond Dave, like the guy from David Lee Roth, but from Van Halen. But so that guy's done some testing, and so yeah, I don't know, on 250 watts on that Magic, I want to say it's going to get you, and I don't know your weight, but and your physical stature would matter too, your hand position, but I'd say you'd be above 250 watts. I'd say you'd easily be above 25 miles an hour. So
very good.
So what do you,
okay, let's go back to the trike shot, if we could. Back up one, if you would, because I don't know. I think we need to talk about the trike a little bit more. We have more shots of it later on, but the VRX TT is what you told me this was called.
Yep, VRX frame. So that frame can be made into a 2-wheeler, a trike, Delta trike, obviously. And I have actually built that same bike with rear-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive also. So it'll accommodate up to I think I could stuff a 520, maybe a 650 in that frame. That's why the frame was bigger, because if a guy really wanted a bigger tire and wasn't worried about crank overlap, that's set up with no crank overlap on the front wheel, so you can turn it. But some guys like me, I'm not worried about crank overlap. I want the biggest, fastest rolling tire I can possibly put on there, and then you don't have to mess with the monster chain rings to get the gearing right. So so that one has a tilting rear section. That's actually a suspension there. I hid the suspension so that whole rear section is suspended with an air shock on that particular model. And I never did get around to building the shell. We studied it in the wind tunnel for a couple of years with the guy that works for Boeing, and it just, I needed more space to build a Velomobile. And then when we moved to Denver, it's so windy here. So that frame has been sold a few times. To me, that frame was meant to be hidden under a shell. So that's really not a frame that I, like to even build. And lately I've just been using different front ends to accomplish the same thing. So that frame was meant to be hidden in a shell.
Very
so
good. All right, let's move along now. And the Varnamajig.
The Varnamabob, yep. That was a fun. That's a fun mobile. That was a streamliner. Paul Buttermer wrote it in the Decimac Challenge way back in the day in the 90s. I want to say that was around, and that thing is actually on my workbench right now, and it's going to a customer in Michigan. And it has, you can either put a single rear wheel, you can put that tilting section that's on there that was built for it, and I also have a fixed wing. And possibly, if he hasn't spent too much money on it, we might fare in the rear wheels and make it into a really sexy fixed Delta without the tilting section. But he'll be able to, if he wants to corner fast with the tilting section, or with the Delta, I should say, so that he can just lock it out and stop, he can do that. Or he can, he could take it to Battle Mountain, run it in two-wheel mode, and have somebody catch him. And so that's run without the top on it, because it was the first day I ever, and my shoulders just really don't fit in that. My shoulders are probably sticking out 2-3 inches on each side, and that's one of the problems. I did widen that shell about 3 inches. I put a center section of carbon and widened it, but yep, I got that from Gary Hill, and built it up and raced it at Waterford, and kind of realized I really don't like being inside a shell that much when the weather warms up either. But right there, that bathroom is at the turnaround at Island Lake, and right there is where I finally caught up to Chris Evans that first day. That's where he stopped to use the restroom, and that's where I finally caught him to where he had that first chat, and he said, yeah, I bought it. It's from Poland. I spent $7,700 on it, and I was like, oh my god! And so that's kind of funny that bathroom it just happens to be in that picture. That's Island Lake, and people from Michigan will know Kensington and Island Lake, a great place to ride.
Very good. Let's move along. The M1. Okay, so
M1,
kind of what started it all. And this
Yep.
is a special one, I think. Is this was this yours, or
I think that was the first one. I'm not positive. I think I did put a derailleur on the first one. That's why that nose dips down a little bit. I would build that bike different nowadays. I still have the molds to it. I've seriously considered selling them, giving them away, making one last bike and maybe changing the front end on it, because now I would do the front end a little bit more aero. I did that with the nose so that it sort of looks like a GT40, but also that if a taller rider was using it with the front derailleur, you can see that there's room for the front derailleur. That's basically why it goes down and up and has that little bit of a dip in the nose. So yeah, that was 2009. That was way back in, that had to be real close to the beginning. So
yep, when you got started. Okay, let's go to the next one. And
much later one, that was I believe that one went to John Burrell in Chicago, because the reason I say that, I don't know why I'm thinking that was John Burrell's bike. So that looks like just another M1, maybe 15, 20 bikes later. That was, I don't know how many years later, could have been 5-6 years.
kind of the evolution of that.
Yep, same bike, same mold, same, literally the same thing. And that's the bike that did, if that's John Burrell's bike, he lost his whole rack after a race. And so that bike, 65 miles an hour down the expressway, tumbled end for end. He says 14 to 16 times. And there was a mark on the nose, and the back wheel was bent. And so pretty tough bike.
So you guarantee then that any of your bikes, after having fallen off a rack of a car,
Yeah,
50 miles
sure.
an hour, are untouched afterwards? That's not the
Yeah.
statement you're making right now, then, is it?
No, I actually have a waiver of liability that I used to have people sign because these things are so low and so dangerous. I used to
Right.
say,
Don't
because
blame me.
it's one of those do-it-your-own risk things. I used
Right.
to build racing kayaks, and they had this big waiver on the front that says kayaking's dangerous. You could drown. This is a tippy boat. It's kind of the same thing. I don't think these things should be on the open road unless you're with a group. I honestly don't.
Right. Next one, please. All right.
That's
King
the original.
Moton.
That's a foam core bike. That was the first bike I built. So that was a foam core. I realized right away that's a horrible process, slow, tedious, and yes, you can build a bike. And that bike was under 23 pounds and was pretty stiff, but that's not you're going to build. And in fact, I built the front section over foam. The back section was actually built over plugs. So kind of the same thing, but there wasn't any foam in there. So I kind of figured out right away that I was kind of bummed because I was kind of like, well, there's no shortcut. I do have to build actual plugs and molds. And it's funny because when Photobuck came back up, I did find my actually pictures of molds. I'm sorry, of plugs for the M1. I was like, oh, that's memory lane. So yeah, that's frame number 1 for me. That's my first bike build.
Very good. Let's go on to the next one. And the hammerhead.
Another blue hammerhead like that other one. So there's only 2 of them. So that's the blue one. And
I think we're going to see even another one after this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. No, they probably pictures of the same bikes because again, I only built 2 of them, and the guy never sent pictures. I never heard from again. I seem to sell to a lot of people that aren't in the quote unquote recumbent community, that people that are, upright bike riders. So the guy, I never heard, I don't know what became of him or the bike, and he promised pictures, and sometimes I'll do that. I'll build a really cool bike, different color paint than I ever use, but then it's always the big hurry to get it to the customer, and they promise me they're going to send me all these pictures. And again, there's
doesn't happen.
Yep, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So
this is an amazing looking bike. Tell us about the tandem.
Yeah, that's that went to Dallas, I believe a lawyer in Dallas, and back-to-back tandem. When the pictures came up on those lately, people thought what and why, and you'll notice it's got a single chain ring on the drive side. On the other side it has, I'm sorry, not chain ring, but chain stay. On the other side it has 2 chain stays. It's triangulated, and that was to cross that chain over, so his stoker would be pedaling in normal way. The chain's crossed over, so it drives the wheel to her back. And I did video of that. I made there's actually a derailleur that I took and flipped over a Dura-Ace derailleur and made a backwards cage for it, and pretty slick. It shifted really nice. Chain overlaps the chain too, but it's still hardly any drag at that point because it's the return section. But yeah, that would be a really fast back-to-back, and I believe that guy ended up breaking up with his fiance, and just one of those tandems ruin relationship deals. So
did this one hold a record? Did this do a tandem?
No,
I thought maybe the only thing broken was his relationship. I guess.
Right, and I don't know who. I know the first customer that bought it sent me a lot of customers will buy the bikes used, and then they'll ask a few questions. So I don't know how many times he asked me how much it was worth, and I want to say I charged 12 grand for that frame. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It was a one-off. I did build molds. I actually did. And I could have built it a take apart where there's a front and a half that's glued together. I really wanted to make it come apart there, even though the guy was really heavy. So we're talking about a 240, 250 rider, 200 plus stoker. So I got about 500 pounds of load on that bike. So I designed it, and I actually did CFD to come up with the frame section on it. It was about 2x6. And but yeah, he didn't want it to come apart. He carried it on a trailer, and he said, no, go ahead and glue it. And I just said, okay, less chance of it squeaking. Again, that's an unknown. I know it wouldn't break, but it's possibly it could come loose and squeaked. Sure. So if it would have been a take apart.
Cool bike. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. Speaking of records, now go ahead and tell us. Sandy Earl, our friend Sandy Earl, sent this picture in, and tell us about this.
That's Phil Plath on a. I did beef the front end on that because, as you can see, this looks like a very strong rider that's putting out big, 1,600, 200, 2,000 watt. And he did set our record for his age. I can't remember if it was. I believe it was over 50. He beat Sean Costin's record by a couple tenths of mile per hour, I want to say. That was with the heavier handlebars. I built him some lighter handlebars, literally almost a pound lighter. Those weighed like 850 grams. But yes, that's Phil Plath on he set 2 or 3 records on that bike.
Very good. Next one.
That's
a trike. Yeah.
That's a later trike. So that's a fairly recent build. I don't know, 6-8 months ago. So that's a fixed wing Delta. So that's just got a nice aerodynamic wing in the back, a big. That's the one I believe I flared out where I usually make my frames about 2 1/8, 2 1/4 wide. But that one from under his butt to the rear section. Now that is the rear section is a completely different mold section off of a Delta. But
I believe we have some pictures. Don't we have, Trey? The next picture's more detailed.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Go through these a little. Go ahead.
So the front section, I want to say that's either a Raptor or an Arrowhead. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure which front end that is. If I use the Arrowhead or the Raptor, because they're so close. The Arrowhead will accommodate up to a 650 rear wheel, and the Raptor will only go up to 520. But basically, I had to set him up for no crank overlap. He wanted the seat. That seat's like 12, 14 inches off the ground. It's a couple miles an hour faster than his VTX or whatever he's got, optimized for speed. So the Delta platform does seem to be, another doctor has one that has a carbon trikes. He says the same thing. No, he's the guy that tested it and said it's 2 to 3 miles an hour faster. This guy just says it's faster than his VTX.
Hit that next slide too. I think then we have
there's that. So that flares out to a good 5-6 inches wide there. So that's got plenty of storage. You can see the door. And instead of just making that parallel like I normally would, I thought because it's built with, 2 halves, why not just flare it out, cut it at that angle? And I do that with guitars. I'll take a mold for a body and I can make that body 4 inches deep or 2 inches deep. I can make that body tapered to where it goes smaller at the neck or not. So I kind of did the same thing there, and it, added a little bit of work, but a lot better product. And also that rear end doesn't need to be any stiffer, but it would add stability to that rear end and hard cornering. So
very good. Next one. All right. This is a really interesting one as well. The Kodiak. Tell us about this.
From Richard Ehrlich, he was the original. I'd penned that Kodiak. I'd sketched it. And he was the first customer. He wanted full suspension. He's the guy that does Moab, Utah. He does what would be considered hardcore off-roading. And he had a couple bikes built for him before of aluminum. And so that one, I think I built one for him and one for me originally. And that was the full suspension one. And then that same mold continue, it's basically I build the front half of the mold and then make that back section separate. And
we've got a few shots here. Actually, I could not resist putting a few shots here of Richard.
Sounds good. That's Richard. Yep.
You're going to see some amazing off-roading by a recumbent here. So go ahead and talk more about the Kodiak, and we'll go through these next 3 or 4 slides.
Yep, he's the guy. I mean, there's a few guys. In fact, if memory serves me, you had the name Ray Young underneath there. And if I'm not mistaken, that guy, he may have been a customer or not, but I believe he also has like a Bachetta Bella or what, not even a Bachella, whatever it is, a Rans or something, but it's completely, some of these guys will take their, whatever bike and set it up for off-road. So I believe I've seen that guy, Ray Young, climb over like a 2-foot log with his off-road bent. So yeah, this guy's the epitome of,
Richard must be fearless. I mean, look at what's going on.
He does adventure races. So he goes out and, he climbs the stuff that other guys aren't climbing on a mountain bike. And he does.
Next one. Go ahead.
He puts in the miles off road. So he doesn't mess around. And he broke a few things on that bike. I think I glued the seat mast and didn't put rivets in it, which I usually do, but I think his went out without rivets, and he had to do a few modifications to that one. But there's about 10 of them, and there's a few of them up in Aspen, Vale, and Steamboat. And a couple of those guys are pretty hardcore. Not like Richard, I don't want to say, but they ride off road, and I haven't had any other issues with anything coming apart. So
yeah, I think that's the last one from Richard. I think that was the winner's circle, or
sounds good.
Great. Okay, next one. All right. So this is your magic. So tell us about this.
That's my TCBM, which either the Cruise Bike Magic or Thunderbolt Cruise Bike Magic, and that bike is a little over 23 pounds, and that was with a heavy front wheel on it, but not including that rear section. That rear section is the same trike rear section frame that was on that last Delta. So I basically took those molds and I kind of looked at them, and I took a template and said, you know what, this might make a nice, so that's really tapered and weird, and I can't even build that part. People want me to build that for them, but I'd have to charge $2,000 or something to even break even on it. But yeah, that's got plenty of storage for bladders, bottles. It actually is about 5.5-inch wide at the top, tapers at the bottom, tapers in the back. So that back section is a pretty neat thing for me. And I'm working my new trike.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I'm not sure if that's where you're going. If not, you can go back there. But since you mentioned Cruise Bike, John, can you may be restricted in what you can say, but what can you tell us about your association with Cruise Bike?
They commissioned me to build these bikes, and I'm not sure, just passive marketing, nothing like on their website, but I'm pretty sure I hope Jim and Maria race them because they're the fastest bikes. They're going to be faster than any non-carbon bike out there. I won't mention any particular bike, but I can tell you that bike is in the top 3 as far as speed. And I know my bikes. I know which one's faster without a power meter. I know by me being a 60-year-old guy, if I can push a bike over 30 miles an hour, I know it's a fast bike. You know what I mean? And I'm not going berserk on it. I'm just hammering hard. So I didn't get a whole lot of other, that nobody's even really inquired about it. So that's going to be a very expensive frame, right up there with my my M1 frame pricing. And that thing has 14 sets of molds to build that bike. So really not a bike I enjoy building, to tell you the truth about it.
John, let's pause here for a second. I've got that's okay. You can leave that slide up if you want. This is maybe for someone who doesn't know too much about carbon fiber frames, and he wants to know, can you connect aluminum to it? And of course, obviously you do connect aluminum. There's bottom brackets to be attached and such.
Sure.
So could you more generally, instead of specifically about this question, how do you go about attaching aluminum parts, say, to a carbon frame?
You want to etch. They do that in upright bikes. You notice all the carbon fiber upright bikes and mountain bikes have aluminum dropouts and aluminum inserts. So you have to prep the aluminum. You can etch it. You can insulate it with fiberglass, which I don't like to do. I'll use a thickened epoxy, a structural adhesive, because it actually has a lot of flexural agent in it. It'll flex before. So aluminum has different thermal expansion dynamics than carbon fiber, so it's not a good match. But I do use aluminum inserts in my rear dropouts. I insulate them. I go through probably a 5-step cleaning process where I sand them, clean them with acetone, then I cover them up. I'll actually soak them in acetone, so they're coming right from the acetone to that structural adhesive. I'll let that stuff cure, then I'll sand that up, mark it up, then I'll put it right in the mold and I'll compression mold it. And there's also lots of holes and stuff drilled in it so that the fiberglass will grab. I don't like bolting aluminum to a carbon fiber. I do in some cases, but so yes, you can, but I wouldn't. A lot of my dropouts are carbon fiber. I used to make even the derailleur hanger was just solid carbon fiber with a little metal threaded insert. Wow. So you don't need any aluminum if it's going to cause you, problems. Don't use stuff you're not familiar and comfortable with.
Right. All right. Here's a quick one from our pal Marco Ropers in the Netherlands. Hello, Marco. So I'm guessing your answer to this is going to have something to do with aerodynamics. I know Marco loves his comfortable underseat steered recumbent. Tell us about why you don't use underseat steering.
I just had a customer inquire about that. He said, like I'll get you a build right now, but it's just never come up on any of those designs. All those designs, I suppose I'd start with that in mind before I did the design. If I was going to do underseat, I particularly thought it looked strange and weird when we saw a guy riding one. He kind of didn't get on and off the bike. It was kind of in his way, and it kind of looked, I don't know. I just kind of, when I looked at one up close, I haven't seen a whole lot because I don't, the guys I ride with are either on my bikes or on, the fast no comms or whatever. And so, I never designed one, and could I take an Apache or whatever and put underseat steering on it? Sure. Would I? No, I don't think so. So the linkage might be in the way, you know what I mean? It's just something that it hasn't come up until that one guy. And when I build these trikes in the next year or so, one of them may have under
Right.
Yeah, one of them might have some linkage under the seat, but
okay. Very good. Thank you, Marco. It's good to hear from you.
Thanks,
All right.
Marco.
So here's the arrowhead again. Do you I think we can probably slip on through to the next one here.
Yep.
And
well, back to the arrowhead. Don't
go ahead.
That,
you go ahead and guide Trey. I'm sorry.
That's 650 front wheel again. Because I'm an old geezer and with the hip replacements, I wanted to get the seat off the ground and the bigger front wheel. So that's and the front end's faster than probably M1 with a big splitter on. But beneath that crank, when you put a big splitter on there, you have a very fast front end. So with a wheel cover, that bike is deadly fast. Larry, who does extensive testings, thinks that Arrowhead's the fastest of the fast. But so
okay, next one. All right, and another
that's Mike Mowat.
Yep,
good friend, good ambassador to the sport. He's a Michigan guy that he put on the 2009 event at Ford Proving Grounds where the guys came with Streamlanders from around the world. So great friend, great ambassador to the sport, just all around nice guy. When I pass away, he gets all my HPV stuff, so he's in my will. That's
why
guy
he's
is.
hanging out with you so much. We know Mike real well. Mike's been on the show, so he's
oh, cool.
All right, next one. And
that's that blue Arrowhead, it looks like to me.
Looks
like
Zach Kaplan sent us in a few shots here. Let's kind of go through these, but it is a beautiful bike. Just a few shots of the Arrowhead. Next one.
Yep.
And that one and the next one. All right. So Phil sent us these. He's got, I guess these are his bikes, or I don't know.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I he's a customer right now. He's the one that's got that Varnum Bob. But I've never really asked him exactly what bikes do you have, or so.
Yeah,
I want to say
I'm always assuming that these guys just call you up, order bikes, and you send it to them. A lot of these are secondhand; they've bought them, used, so you don't always know what happens. To
right. My competition is my used market. After building 150 bikes,
right?
Somebody will call me and ask for a frame set, and then they go, "Oh wow, that's a lot of money."
Right. Let's go on to the next thing you know. Here, I think we're going to go through some of Phil's more individually.
Sure.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, John.
I want to say that's the first Apache because I remember that fork I had laying around was a Specialized fork. So I want to say that was the first Apache that I built, actually.
All right.
So
next one, another hammerhead there.
Yep, the blue hammerhead.
And front end of it. Okay, next one.
Right.
And the rear end.
Back end of it.
A little bit nicer look of it, though. We didn't get so many close-ups.
And those are carbon dropouts back there, and that bike's got full carbon dropouts in the front while we're talking
just
about
like
the
you
aluminum.
Were mentioning. Yep. Next one.
And it's compression molded. So
all right,
that's a regular old M1. I don't know what circle, what year, what guy got it or whatever, but that's just a black M1. Yeah.
All right, next one.
That might be the same M1, might be a different one. I'm not sure if it is or not. There's a few black ones.
Apparently, back up to that last slide. Apparently, he carries that M1 in that Mercedes, so that's good to know. Okay,
that's cool. Yeah, the Mercedes.
Next slide.
So there's another Apache, and again, I'm not sure whose that is or where. That's got my built-in. That's my how I do my seat. That the seat I build. I call that the tunnel ram. I call that when I was looking at seats on recumbents, they got those two big goofy loop-de-loop things. I don't even know what they are for support. They actually are vertically stiff and horizontally, torsionally, they're not good. So, you know, one of the worst seat designs I ever seen. So I built that tunnel. It's how you mount the seat without anything in the rear. It's also creates storage. So, and it's also aerodynamic because it closes the area between the frame and the seat. So that's got a nice little tail section that I didn't want to put a finish on it. So I just sprayed some adhesive on it and used some really cool silver reflective material I found and just wrapped it. And it is really cool. And it actually it's really reflective. So
looks beautiful, especially with those wheels. There we go. And these are your shots from your photo bucket account, I think.
Oh, I did send you this one. Yeah,
I was. These last ones are.
I'm surprised I even. Maybe I didn't know you had that model or something.
Okay.
Maybe.
Next one.
That's a really nice. That's a guy from Canada that came down. That he Googled my name, found me right day before one of the Michigan races. He came down. I was like, I thought he was just a possible wannabe tire kicker. I was like, no, just go to the race. Just go to the race. It was Friday. I was trying to get bikes together, and he's like, no, I'm coming to your house. I have a deposit. And I was like, oh, okay. You know where I live? And apparently he looked me up just via Googling my name, and that's the $11,000. That was a complete SRAM red tailbacks, whole 9 yards, beautiful bike.
Look at that. All right, next one.
I just took that. I sent you that picture because I just wanted to show the same tailbox on 2 different bikes, and you can see on the left the Apache. It looks like I had to ferret in a little bit different. I think the molds weren't quite long enough to ferret in the way I wanted, so I think I had to add some material towards the front and maybe the bottom. But that is the same tailbox, and I did pitch those molds. I finally pitched them because that was meant to be a little bit aerodynamic, but more for storage for that original. So yes, it is aerodynamic, and so that customer that owns a bike on the left, he says when he puts it on, he goes about 3 miles an hour faster down the big hills with the tailbox. So he knows for a fact he rides the same loop with the club over and over again. So he knows that box adds speed. So
very nice. Okay, next one.
That's a road. That's a Kodiak. And that would have been my frame that's been set up different ways, but that was set up with the road wheels just to show people that you could put, they talk about long wheelbase bikes, and none of the road guys are buying them, but that's a sub 24 pound build. And I want to say it felt very fast. I mean, that's an 1100 gram wheel set with tubulars, but that thing seemed like it flew. And I tell you, once I built the long wheelbase that I swore I wouldn't, another thing I said I'd never build, I really enjoyed it. So,
John, here's another question from Marco. This is a good one, especially since we just were talking about your bikes being sold secondhand, used bikes and stuff. So it seems as though your bikes are pretty much have to be custom built to the original owner. Is that the case? How flexible are these? Tell us about that.
Okay, the seats move all over the place. You can see on that bike, you could probably move the seat front to back. Back, you're going to go so far and hit the wheel but that bike, I do fix the bottom bracket on. My other bikes, I put a carbon fiber tube, a rectangular tube inside of there. I'll set them up for an original owner, or I'll build a slot so that the original owner can move it back, maybe forward 3/4, back 3/4. But no, some of them, I like to glue the bottom bracket in for strength on my booms, but the seats all move. The only one the seat doesn't move on is the M1 where the seat's molded in. So all of them pretty much have both adjustable seat and bottom bracket. It's just not as easy as, say, a telescoping boom. And the telescoping booms, I think, is a real weak link because the only commercial bike I ever bought was a Challenge Fusion. I built that. I hadn't built the first one yet. I tested one out. I couldn't even ride it, so I don't believe in test drives because I couldn't even ride a recumbent the first time I tried to buy one from somebody. So if I would have gone with the ride it and figure it out, I'd have never built bikes. So I bought a Fusion. It had crank overlap with the stock 170 cranks because I'm a short guy. So, but I would twist the boom. I kept tightening it more and more, so I finally put a set screw in it. So I never liked telescoping booms. Now, if you've got carbon in a shape like a Zacra or a M5 where the boom can't twist, then now I'm okay with the telescoping boom. You know what I mean? Now you got something that can't twist, but a tube inside a tube's horrible. It makes the tube weak, it doubles up the tube, so it's twice as strong where it doesn't need to be, and then it makes the tube weaker fore and after where it's doubled up. So I can't stand round telescoping booms, if any,
Right.
stick bikes or whatever. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. So another adjustment that can be made has to do with the handlebars. So Garage 66 asks, what percentage of clients choose the gunner bars over straighter fly bars?
Not many. I won't even send them to you unless you, like the guy with that Apache that had gunners, he actually had a bike with gunners on it. So what I tell you is I'll send you regular T-bars. You take some mountain bike bar ends, you put them on your T-bars, and you ride it like that. Now you've got both the T-bars to hang on to, and you've got the gunners to practice with. When you feel real good about the gunners, you're going to cut the regular handlebars off. When you do that, then you send me that whole thing, and I'll make it out of carbon. But I rarely send bikes out with gunfighters. So because they're just not as stable, and I don't know that every customer is going to get on it and be able to ride it. So.
Right. Well, people are enjoying what they're seeing here. All right. I think let's go back to the slideshow if you could. And here's a question. This part of, I think, is we're going to start talking about things coming up, right, John? I think.
And not necessarily. That's a gold medal winning hand cycle right there. That guy.
Oh, the hand cycle. Right.
Hand cycle took a gold medal at Rio, so I'm pretty proud of that. Put gold medal in the Paralympics. That was Ernst Van Dyke's bike. We built quite a few of those. He's got one for training, one for riding, and I don't know which. I don't know which, if that's the first. I don't know which one that is, but yeah, we adjusted a few things, and so that's a gold medal. He beat. He'd been racing Alex Zanardi, a famous Formula One driver, for years. He'd been coming in second to him at the Worlds and the UCI. Whatever their competitions are, and as soon as he got that bike, he beat him every race. So
that is gorgeous.
I tried to find the pictures of him, hands up in victory, in a big smile, and Alex Zanardi looked like a mamma mia. You wrecked my pizza or something. He's like crying behind him in second place. I don't know if that was the gold medal race or if that was at the Worlds, but I tried to find that picture. It's hilarious. I did post it on Bent Rider one time. And it just cracked me up. But I love Alex Zanardi. He's another ambassador. Lost his legs. Famous Formula One driver. Lost his legs and pretty much exclusively rides and races that's called a kneeling type hand cycle, not the lay down where they're paralyzed. But these guys have full use of their body. They just have bilateral amputee, maybe one, maybe missing one or both limbs around the knee areas. So that's a kneeling type hand cycle.
It's beautiful. All right. Next slide, please. If we can. And we're going to get into some of, I think now at this point, get into some of the new things. Trey, are we having some difficulty? That's the last slide? Oh, okay. I thought, all right. So now's where we're going to talk about the some of the new things.
Yeah, I sent you pictures of the... Go ahead.
Did you send me some other pictures?
I sent you a lot of pictures because the Raptor wasn't in there for sure. There's a few bikes that weren't in there, but
I don't remember seeing the Raptor. But anyways, maybe I overlooked it. But that's most of what you have put together. But let's talk about what's coming up because we're kind of running out of time here. Anyway,
all right.
John. So we have a question from Peter Vick. Has John made any tadpole trikes? So let's talk about that for a minute. 2020
is going to be the year of. I'm looking for a retirement home in Florida. I'm looking for a small house with a big shop. So I'm going to be building a road racing tadpole, and I have a off-road full suspension tilting tadpole in the drawing board too. And it looks to me like I've got 2 customers lined up for the road racing model. So that'll be coming up first. I'm kicking around right now whether to go ahead and take the deposits and get going on them because I'm going to be in the middle of this searching for a shop in Florida. And so, no, I haven't built any tadpoles, but they're coming up. The sketches are done. Going to go straight to full-size sketches and molds, and so they'll be coming up this year. 2 different tadpoles.
Let's both say hello to Larry Osland, who's just logging in. He said,
Larry.
hello, Larry. It's good to have. You've already been on the broadcast. When you go back, you'll see yourself on earlier, but it's good to have you with us. Hello. All right, John. Great news on the tadpole trike. I'm glad they asked that question, and that'll be coming up. And your move to Florida that you talked about. The one other thing you mentioned to me had to do with the gearing bottom bracket. You want to talk about that?
I'm not sure what you're referring
You
to.
had some kind of integrated gearing bottom bracket that you were.
Oh yeah, the off-toed bike. So the other bike I have on the drawing board that I would like to build is more of is the hub. Do they call it a hub driven, where the crank is in the hub?
I think so.
And Curvello is doing that with a geared hub that does freewheel. And I basically resigned to just use a unicycle hub. And they do have drift trikes also have the crank in the hub like a big wheel, but they have a freewheel model of it. So so that's another bike that I have the drawing of that I really like to do, because it'd be a real simple frame, almost like that VRX. It would be a really quick, easy frame to build. And I'm joking, what I want to do is I want to build a full carbon bike for 19 pounds, $1,900 with road wheels on it, because the frame would be another one of those, just 2 parts, quick left and right, a day or 2, glue it together in a day. And then basically, now if I had to make the front fork out of carbon, that's going to be more money, but I can use a unicycle frame, and actually you can buy them with the wheel, with the crank, with the frame. The seat post is 1 1/8, so you can actually use that for the steer tube. I might have to machine it a little bit, but I could put bearings on that or put an adapter. So that's probably the way I would go to build a really cool. And something Jim Parker mentioned, I said, what do you think about the front geared bikes? And he said, it's a perfect platform to put electric assist in the back. So now you got your front drive wheel, and then you throw one of those hub driven electric assist in the back, which electric assist bikes are just taking off, really popular. So so yeah, that's the other bike, not as hot on my list as the tadpole trikes, but that's definitely one that I think would be more to the general, I mean, it's still a full carbon, still an exotic bike, but those bikes with the high seat angles and the low bottom bracket are easy for anybody to jump on and ride, where a low racer, the average person's not going to be able to get on a low racer with the 15-degree seat angle and the cranks, 6 to 8 inches higher, and be able to ride it the first time like me. I could not ride one the first time. And it actually took a week or 2 on that Fujin to where I could even stay upright.
Right.
So,
but the payoff is a great one. So, hello to Joseph Janning, who just posted that Ryan 228 comment about sitting here for 40 minutes with his mouth open. Joseph from Germany. Hello, Joseph. It's good to see you with us. All right, John.
Show him the Raptor. If you didn't show him the pictures of my Raptor, it's gonna be completely.
I'm gonna have to do that. I'm sorry that I missed out on that, John. Maybe we'll have to do this again and catch up with you after you've gotten to Florida in a year or so. We'll show what's coming up. We would love to do that.
Sounds good.
So I popped up a couple questions that are having to do with contacting you, and it's not easy. I have to say. So tell us, and I will link to whatever you suggest here in the description of the video. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
The bottom line is, I built a website, my wife and I, back in I want to say 2007, when I was doing the Harley parts. We never finished it. It was one of those do-it-yourself things that's still sitting there in limbo, dead. Actually, GoDaddy said, let me revamp it for you, and it's worse than it was. So I've got a lame website. It does have contact. It's called Thunderbolt Man, MAN for manufacturing. But most people Google my name. That's how most people, I would say, find out about me. And again, I sell to a lot of people that see me on the bikes or see other people on my bikes and then say, wow. And then as long as they figure it out and get the spelling right or stumble on it, because if you Google my name, you'll see there's quite a few pages of stuff. Even if you spell it wrong, it ends up taking you to the, you go carbon recumbent or whatever other keywords you're using. But
or even images. There's quite a bit out there. But as far as how about contacting you? Let's say they are sold and they want to throw some money at you because they've been saving up. How are they going to contact you, John?
J Morciglio at Comcast.net. So J, my last name, Comcast.net, and that's basically it. Send me an email, and
that'll be great. I will post that in there too, so that they'll be able to contact you.
And this year also includes a website, because you can't build custom guitars. I mean, you can, and I do, but again, it makes it a lot harder to sell them. But so this year, fast bikes, loud guitars, that'll be the new website, and I plan on having a real website, so that should alleviate a lot of the. So I think some people are reluctant to even deal with you if you don't have a website, but that's fine, because what I do is a little bit different. So if you're talking about exotic, Velocraft didn't have a good website when they started building either. Everybody said how lame my website was, but if you remember back in the day, Velocraft's website was as lame as one I had. Nobody ever complained about the Velocraft bikes. They still were sold by a dealer, and so.
Very good. And
Larry, the question:
Are you going to Sebring? Are you going to be the brand?
No, I'm not, because I'm in the middle of this remodeling, and the customer in St. Petersburg, I'm just going to ship him the bike. I was going to bring another bike down for another customer that is probably your competition there. He rides with Alex. He used to ride an M5, but he wrecked it. He's going to have a Raptor, actually my Raptor. Alex has an Arrowhead. So no, I'm not going to make it to Sebring, because it doesn't make any sense. Even, I was going to take the motorhome. I was looking at the time and the gas, and I was going to take the Toyota to get the bikes down there. I'm still looking at 6-7 days. I'm going to be moving there and looking for a house 3 weeks into March at the latest. So it doesn't make any sense to take a week to go now and then turn around and go next month. So no, I'm not making it. I'm really sorry. I would have loved to made it, but I would have, flying was also an option. I was going to put my Magic in a box and just fly just to get there. But again, I got so much work going on here. I need to get all this work done and not take any days off. Just get this work done as fast as I can, so I can get my butt down to Florida in the sunshine in the bigger shop.
All right. Well, I think it's fair to say it will be easier for you to attend Sebring next year.
Absolutely.
So you'll be a little bit closer. John, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know how busy you are, and you got so much going on, and yet you spent plenty of time getting this all prepared and set up. It's been a treat and a lot of fun having you on. Hope we'll have you back on again. Stay in touch. And thank you, John Morciglio.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Hi, everybody from Denver. 72 degrees today, 4 to 6 inches of snow tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl, and it was great. Thank you so much.
All right, John. Take care now.
Take care.
All right, folks. Very good. What a great guy. He's really interesting, isn't he? All right. Speaking of interesting guys, we have one of our own interesting guys up next. We're going to talk to Doug Davis from Dallas, Texas. Doug, you're back with us. Are you there? Yeah, you might not be unmuted yet, though. So I thought
I'm probably not unmuted, because I usually forget to push the button.
All right, Doug. So I've been hyping this big announcement of yours, and it is big. This is really interesting. So,
yeah, I mean, compared to what John's been talking about, though, I'm on the far other end of the spectrum.
All right, why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell us what we're talking about, and then as soon as make the quick announcement, and then we'll start the slideshow and show people what you're talking about.
So, as you know, because you've been involved in this since the beginning, we started this little bike store here, and I've had a number of customers come in, and they've asked for trikes. They want, they're interested. We've always been a very inclusive bike shop, and we've got a number of brands of trikes in here, but we've run into issues, mainly the issue of, well, that's really expensive, or that doesn't have what I need, or in a lot of cases, I'm just really big and the trike doesn't work for me, or I'm not sure I'm going to ride it. So all these things have come together, and I started reaching out to the manufacturers of trikes saying, hey, I've got a customer, this is their demographic, do you got anything? And the answer was no, or do this or do that. And in the end, I said, you know what, I can fix this problem. I can come up with something that fits this entry-level market that seems to be coming through my door that I can't capture.
Well, let's take a look.
So I did.
And there we
go.
Well, there
so we have a trike. This is our first trike. It is designed and blamed, or whatever you want to call it, by us.
What's it called? What's it called?
We're calling it we've been trying to figure out what to call it. Actually, we decided to call it the Evil One, or the EV1, as it's the first one we made. So it's really got a really fancy name, which shows you how much marketing experience I've got. But it's aimed at this, probably the exact opposite of John's bikes. It's the entry level Supreme.
And
so
Trey, let's go ahead and just kind of slowly pace through this.
Yeah. So it's very optioned up, but it's all entry level components. It's not going to stand, the test of a racer. It's not going to do that, but it will get somebody who wants to try a trike out on a trike. And it's got a bunch of, and it's really designed to reach into this market that is on the edge of the trike buying community. They need to be on trikes. They want stuff. They're not sure what they want. They're not ready to invest in a high dollar cat trike or a high dollar ice trike or something like that, but they absolutely want to be in this space. And so that's what we aim for. It's fairly featured out. It's got a lot of stuff on it that you would find on the higher end trikes.
Such as,
well, we've got fenders, racks, disc brakes, thumb shifters, or not thumb shifters, trigger shifters, all those kind of things that are there. Even we can carry a flag holder. You can see it on that one. There's a little flag holder off to the side of it that comes with it. But again, it's entry level components. It's a 7-speed derailleur. It's a 3-ring in the front. It's a heavy trike. It does have suspension at the halfway point, so it's kind of a half suspended bike. There you go. There's a suspension on it, which is adjustable. And then, more importantly, it's got the weight limits that I wanted. So out of the box, I can get you a 250 pound rider on it. With one change to the suspension, we can go all the way over 300. So it's designed that for an entry level, fairly heavy rider. And it finally, we've had the prototypes in here for a while. We finally got one we like, and so you can come by the store and ride it. And then you can get on the website and get on the mailing list for the announcements on how to get it. I'm starting to talk, now that I have prototypes, I've been starting to talk to other dealers, and hopefully we'll get it into some other dealers here soon. And so there'll be some more places you can get it besides, good old Dallas, Texas.
Very good. And I think maybe one more shot here, and then we're going to go. There we go. And there's that rack you talked about.
Got a rack.
And so, Doug, how much would something like this set a guy back?
This is where I got to do the soupy thing. The price is right. How much would you buy door number 1, door number 2?
You tell us when to go to the slide, and Mark, go to the slide when you're ready.
So we have targeted the retail price for this at $999.99, $1,000.
There it is, folks.
That is the targeted retail price for this trike. That's not including delivery, options, upgrades, or anything like that, but it's a rideable trike ready to go out of the box with the general equipment that you see on the right-hand side of that.
So you see all of the standard stuff right there along the standard equipment right there along the right. And that's incredible. Go back, if we could, then to one of the shots of the trike as we finish up talking with Doug about this, if we could. That's it.
There you go. That's a good one.
Terrific, Trey. Thank you. So what is the timeline on all of this? If someone wants to buy one of these, how long will it take until it's be able to be picked up? And what's the process for buying them right now?
Well, the process of buying them right now is only through our store here until we get some other dealers. Right now, I've got a container's worth of these things that's sitting in the ship channel right now. It should be here shortly.
And here is in Plano,
Dallas,
Texas.
Just outside Dallas.
Clay was asking that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know it because I live here, but you're right, nobody else would know. And so they're here. I'm looking at probably getting the first ones late February, early March out to people. So, and we, go onto the website. Hopefully you'll link to it later, get signed up on the mailing list. When we get them in, got to go through the inspections, make sure they actually sent us what we put together, all those kind of details. But assuming everything's good, we're looking at less than 2 months out before you could have one in your hand. I'm going to get them out to you guys to test ride. You know, obviously, you know, there's people in this industry that will give me good feedback. We've been letting people ride it around the store area here, and that's actually changed some of the design. So really, this is a you know, I wouldn't call it a prototype anymore, but it is the first generation, and so I'm going to be looking for a lot of feedback from the people that get them. We'll probably over support them and at first, just so I can understand how people use them. I mean, you know me, I beat the heck out of everything that I ride, and I've ridden a lot of miles on these things on the prototypes now. And I kind of know how they ride and what they feel like, but I need other people to ride them now too and start telling me that. So I'm hoping this is a good price there. I'm hoping it'll get a bunch of them out there, and then the next, you know, and help me learn, because again, this is my first shot.
And Bill McBride, I believe a fellow Texan, wants to know where these are manufactured.
Well, like everything, they're manufactured in Asia. They're with a partnership of a company in China that builds other bicycles, and they're not in Wuhan. And they were shipped out before that, but I was just there literally 5 days ago. I was just in China, looking at some of the changes we were making. So that's been an interesting experience, getting this thing organized and getting it built and getting pieces of them heading this way.
Well, Doug, this is just amazing. I mean, that's a shocking, affordable trike that seems to have everything you need to get started with. Something we hear about all the time, people saying like, you know, it's got to be less expensive to get started with for me to get into it. I just don't have the kind of money to get into anything else. And so maybe you have found the spot for that. We've had a couple of dealers that I just put comments up on who had just commented on thinking it's a nice trike and a good idea. And maybe we'll finish up with this guy right here.
Larry wants one.
Larry wants one, of course.
Yeah, Larry, we'll work something out with you. Don't worry.
So, there we go, Larry. Well, maybe we can do something for you. So, Doug, thanks for running through the hoops you needed to do especially the last couple of days to.
It's been interesting, but yeah, I appreciate the time, Gary, and I'm looking forward to getting people out on these things.
It's a great announcement, and I'm sure you're going to get a big response, and we'll be keeping our eye on it. We'll be talking more about it. Doug, thanks for coming on to Laidback Bike Report again, and you're always with us to help out anyway, so we appreciate it. You take care. Thank you. All right, very good. Well, let's continue the excitement. Well, heading out to Des Moines, Iowa, talk to Tim Cain, who has been very busy of late, working on his Tie Glide bike that we talked about here on the show a couple months ago. And also he's been attending various events, including the Iowa Bike Expo, which he's going to talk about too. So, Tim, I think I'm going to just toss it right on over to you at this point. Let's start with the Tie Glide. Tell us what you've been up to.
Great. Yeah, we introduced the bike a few months ago and realized we haven't reviewed it much because nobody's had the miles in the seat. And now I do, and a couple other folks do. So I thought I'd come back and just kind of give an update to how it's been riding. And the one thing about it, it's still a big fan of the bike. I switched it. You can see it here. This is the more of the touring configuration I started out with, and got well, that's pretty obvious. It's loaded up everything but the panniers on there. Fenders, the pretty heavy duty wheels, and 1.75 inch Marathon Pluses, and it was still surprisingly fast is what struck me about it when I would get out on that thing all laden like that. And I decided, well, let me try it in another configuration. We can go through a few of these.
Yeah, go ahead, and you tell Trey, you take charge.
Yeah, just you can kind of roll through all the first one should be more touring setup kind of. Yeah, that's so you can see got the water bottles.
Talk briefly about the touring configuration as we see it.
Yeah, like I said, the pretty beefy wheels. I mean, this thing, and you can order these from Davis. Every one is basically a custom job, but he's got some basic templates in mind. And this is the dual 26 setup here. Also, I have really heavy titanium gauge tubing here. You can get different gauging, and for example, AD Carson's had the gauging like this in a dual 26. I think it was dual 26. Then he also had a lighter gauging, which he preferred a lot more for his riding style, and the 700 with the 20 front wheel too. I
Hang on
think.
a second, Tim. Trey, are you having some difficulties with the slides? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
You got it now. Let's see. I think he was having some trouble. Okay,
hey, so I've got it all loaded up here with obviously the GPS stuff and the
Vario. Good to go. So go ahead and keep rolling them then.
Vario and Vario radar and everything. So it was great touring config. Really, really solid, comfortable ride. And I've got AD Carson's seat on it, which is what I prefer. You can put whatever you want on.
Now we're on the speed config though. Yes.
Yeah, this is now I've pulled the roll off, and this is a cassette and gone with much faster wheels and tires. And so yeah, if you can just go on to the next one, Trey. Basically, that mirror will be coming off too. By the way, I'll get a little.
Is that in the wind a little bit? Slowly?
Yeah, I'll get another solution for that. But anyway, it's obviously the same bike, same frame. The big difference is I went with 700 in the rear, so I've got a 726 on here now. So this thing, after following John Morciglio, I hate to talk about a fast bike, but with his incredible bikes, but this thing is fast. It's even faster than my Vachetta High Racer. So,
and to be fair, you're what the point you're proving is not that this is the fastest recumbent out there, but that it may be the most flexible. I mean, speed and to tour and to do the speed.
Exactly, and they're leaving you can, as John was talking about with his Kodiak, the off-road stuff. That Richard Ehrlich is also interested in, the evolution of this too. He said it's a rear suspension away from him buying one of these too, because these will accommodate a 3-inch tire in the back.
Okay,
so you can off-road it. And in fact, if we keep going, a friend I've made along the process in the last couple of years, working on these, Joe Christian, he commissioned one as well. Yeah, and this is Joe's bike. He's also getting a new one with a pinion on it, but he's more of an off-road kind of guy too. And this was a week or two ago, and Joe was out riding around in more off-roady kind of circumstances than I typically get in. But this is funny. He was looking for a name for his bike. He was on a vision quest, and he stopped by this headstone and decided to call it the Big Johnson, because these are really big bikes. They're really, mine is, I forget the dimensions, but it's crazy long.
What are you calling yours, Tim?
Mine's the Land Yacht, but now that it's faster, I might think that might not be the right name for it. But it was surprisingly, I just didn't expect it to be as fast as it was. And part of it, the geometry fits me pretty well, because the lower bottom, if you're a fan of the lower bottom bracket kind of tie glide, or of the evolution of easy racer kind of bikes, this to me is the heir apparent. And I came through this design from AD Carson's Mach series with the dual 26. Like I said, now I've gone to the 700 rear and 26 in front, which I like a lot. But it really comes down, if you're more of an upright seat rider and you like a lower bottom bracket, which I have come to. I used to be the most reclined kind of rider that I could be in the old days, but now I tend to like being more upright and throw the fairing on to accommodate for the drag I'm creating doing that. So it's just it's I think AD's made some comments about it, and I know Joe has a tie glide, or has a tie rush as well, and he actually prefers this. So
that says a lot.
Yeah, it really does. It's a great platform, and it can be, pretty easily scaled to particular details, whatever the customer wants. So Davis Carver is just a great guy to work with, and he'll make you the bike you want. So, and part of the issue about this, it was good reviewing again, I think, to bring up, is we didn't see a lot of new bikes in 2019. And I guess it would probably be this and the Schlitter Freestyle, the only two I can think of. People can correct me if I'm wrong, but and in the long wheelbase category, we're looking at probably, the Phoenix came along in 2018, the Rance Phoenix, great bike. But other than that, the Vachetta Bella, the linear limo, which adds a folding advantage, and long bike Slipstream, and then the Sunseeker. I'm not sure if there's any more. People can correct me, but I think that's about it for production bikes. And
Pretty
and
limited.
AD's Mach 3s are pretty close basically, but there's not a lot of them. So it's nice to see another choice out there and kind of the evolution again of the Easy Racer line. So
absolutely. All right. And
been a great bike.
You love that bike. All right.
Yeah, I'm a fan. Titanium light, good bike.
Let's talk. Is that it? I didn't mean to cut.
No, that's it. Yeah, I just want to get. I've actually got the miles in now, so I felt more
confident.
Yeah, more confident giving a review. Yeah,
very good. All right, so that's the first part of your segment, but then also you had occasion last weekend. We talked a little bit, and you were at a bike expo that happened to be right in your neighborhood. Tell us where you were.
Yeah, the Iowa Bike Expo in Des Moines is one of the bigger ones in the Midwest, and drew a pretty good crowd as usual. And there were a few trike folks there. Mark Eglin from Cat Trike was there.
The next slide, I think you can see him off in the distance and
talk to Mark, ask about. Didn't have any news for me really because they're focused on basically their e-trike, line. They're getting that prepared. Did get some information where they're going with that, but last year they introduced the Eola, of course, and it's been a solid trike. But so they're busily getting their E-line ready with the Bosch system.
Yeah, they talked to us about that CycleCon. I know they're working on it. And so you were actually working there. You're helping a guy out. Who's the guy with the beard? I don't recognize
Dave Hendricks of Connecticut Yankee Peddler. He's a buddy of mine, so I help him out with his booth. And so I was asking Dave just to summarize what's the latest, and it's just not surprisingly, again, not really news, but the shift to E systems. I mean, so he's selling a lot more E-trikes these days.
Yep. And of course, so Dave, of course, we worked with a lot last year at Ragbri when we were there with Inner Tuba. And I just, I hadn't seen the beard before, so I thought that was interesting.
That's kind of a winter feature for Dave. That comes and goes. So.
Yeah. Let me just say hi to our pal, John Williams, who's been on the show quite a few times from London. John, who's also selling Velomobiles now out there. So hello, John. It's good to have you with us. We appreciate it. So
I enjoy John's YouTube channel too.
He's got a great. That's Velo ads. Yep. He's great. All right, go ahead. And what else did you see there? Well,
the Ragbri, their big bike ride across Iowa. It's kind of nationally, internationally known. Has had a big year because I won't bore everybody with the details. Most people probably heard it if they're into the ride at all. But the staff left and spun off a new ride called the Iowa Ride. Ragbri got a new director, new staff, and they're continuing the ride, and they were there promoting it. And so it's been kind of interesting. So now there are two rides, and the great thing, there's actually some upside to this. The Iowa Ride will start, and it's going to go east to west, and the week before Ragbri, then Ragbri will come back west to east the way it always does. So for those not faint of heart, you can ride a full loop.
That's what people were hoping was going to happen. Yeah. You could, if you had the time and all. That would be a tremendous. And how many miles is that going to be?
Oh, they're both in the range of 400, 450, something like that. I'm sorry, they're published out there. They both
800 or 900 miles, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sure how. I think they line up fairly closely, so there's not a huge gap between the starting of one and the ending of the other, which it could be, But actually, I think the north-south to get from the Iowa Ride to Ragbri is not too far. So.
Yeah, my guess is the challenge would not be so much can you handle 2 weeks at 900 miles, but can you handle partying for 2 weeks?
That is certainly the Ragbri experience anyway. We'll see about the Iowa Ride.
Right, first year for the
yeah.
All right.
So Ragbri also, then some other positives that came out of it. Ragbri is. It was getting very commercial. It was a lot of the criticism of it, and it was getting expensive everywhere. People felt like they're kind of, having their money parted from them too easily. And Ragbri, or the Register, the host papers, pledged a lot of the money. It will now go back to the host towns and charities. So a much bigger chunk of it. So that's a positive that came out of it. That and that now we have two rides. It was getting awfully busy too. Like the days around Central Iowa, Des Moines area. Last year, I know the day I rode, they think 35,000 people. It was just crazy. It's just dangerous. So it might be good to split it out a little bit. So there's some positives that come from it. Also, Ragbri related. This is they revealed the statues at the expo. These were the founders, Donald Call and I'm blanking on his name. I can't believe I forgot his name. John Karras, and that's John sitting there being interviewed about it. So. Those
And
are
where are those statues going?
they're going to go downtown and Waterworks Park. It's a lot of the bike trails in Des Moines converge around there, so they're going to be located there near Gray's Lake.
Very
So
good.
That should be pretty interesting. And then my final comments on the day, the test track is usually, it's always interesting. The trikes dominate. This was not like we mentioned, Mark and Cat Trike were there. Also, there was a rep from Whiz Wheels there for Terra Trikes. And then I think 3 trike dealers were there, Dave and a couple other folks. But it's mostly upright bike, but all day, every year, it's all the trikes dominate because it's an opportunity to for people to ride a trike that haven't had it before. So it's interesting. So I talked to a lot of people, helping them get set up to ride, and having that experience, Dave, the trike we just looked at, Doug's trike, that's the criticism. I loved it, too much money, so probably 80% of the buyers would love to have a trike, but they just weren't ready to get into that price point. So
it seems like an incredible opportunity, a jumping off point for people that may not have jumped in, right?
It really does. So,
yeah.
And it was a smile on everybody's face. Everybody gets that trike smile the first time around the track. So,
well, I'm glad you had a good time there, and thanks for the great report. It's good you shared that. So even though we weren't there, you've made us feel like we were there now. So that's great, Tim. Thanks as always for everything you do on the show and for the report. And we're going to move along now. So let's get on to our good pal Denny Voorhees with the sports report. Denny, let's wrap it up with the sports report today. Go ahead. You're sounding awfully quiet, very quiet. Usually you're not so quiet. Usually you actually are muted.
Muted? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Take it away.
I was just switching my screen around here. So this weekend was the beginning of the ultra race season here in the U.S. The Pace Bend Ultra, a 6, 12, and 24-hour race in Texas that kicked off this weekend, and several incumbents are in the event. I should have complete results next month. I'm sorry. Next weekend is the much anticipated Sebring Battle of the Brands. The challenge is to see which two-wheeled recumbent brand racks up the most combined miles for the century and the 12-hour events at Sebring, Florida, and we'll be there. Buscetta, Cruise Bike, and Schlitter Bike brands square off for the bragging rights and a bit of camaraderie. Jim and Maria Parker of Cruise Bikes, Mark Swanson of Buscetta, and John Schlitter of Schlitter Bikes have called their faithful to the annual Bike Sebring event. I should mention that the bikes of all brands are eligible, and indeed, there will be a number of other brands involved. Lucia Parker of Cruise Bike reports that as the deadline of the sign up to the event, which was Friday, there were 57 recumbents enrolled in the century and the 12-hour races. Cruise Bike, Buscetta, and Schlitter have the majority of the entries, but Rands, Easy Racers, Carbent, M5, G4, and Zacra will be represented. Last year, there were a total of only 14 recumbents in all of the 3 events at the Sebring racetrack. And the Sebring is, of course, one of the very early events of the year, and it's kind of like the Daytona of ultra racing here in the East. It usually gets a very good turnout. It should be a fun event and a boost for the ultra racing community. And two-wheeled bents. Some of the entrants, I'm sure, will be getting their first taste of ultra racing. I plan on being at the finish, so hopefully I'll have a full report next month in the Laidback Bike Report. There is talk of other events this year, and this could be the start of something special. That's it for this month. Remember to stay on the bike and keep moving forward. Back to you, Gary.
Very nice, Denny. Thank you. Well, yeah, we appreciate you attending Sebring. We're not going to be down there this year, but we will be there with your eyes, and bring us a nice report, and we will share that with all of our viewers next month. It's a big deal with the Battle of the Brands and also. Very nice. Thank you, Denny. And at this point, it's time to talk about the sponsors of the Laidback Bike Report. Want to thank them, starting with TerraCycle. From fairings to headrests, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew have you covered. And trailside.bike. If you find yourself in Florida near the Withlacoochee Trail, stop in to see Andrew and his crew. And Cruise Bike. Their patented race and record-proving front-wheel drive geometry changes the rules of cycling. Now, comfort doesn't come at the cost of performance, but fair warning, your cheeks may hurt from smiling. And TerraTrike. Wherever your ride leads, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. Now including KMX carts, the trike for the young at heart. How much fun can you handle? They would like to know. All right, guys. Announcements. Just one short announcement actually this month. It's from HP Velotechnik. Our buddies in Frankfurt, Germany there have completed a lavish homepage relaunch, or as Alexander Kraft of HP says, new decade, new website. Check it out at www.hpvelotechnik.com. And they got a nice little configurator set up there. They've done a really nice job, and they've worked very hard on that. So we hope you guys will check that out. We don't have any viewer submissions this month, but as a reminder, we'd love to have those viewer submissions. Maybe we'll start next month again with them. So if you've got pictures of your accomplishments or events, you want to share them with us at the Laidback Bike Report, send them to us at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com. How about next month on the Laidback Bike Report? What could we possibly come up with next month? Well, we're going to talk about something that people are talking about all over the recumbent world, and it's e-assist. This time, we're going to talk about the legal and legislative problems that some people are having, such that they can't actually ride their bents with e-assist on various trails and maybe even on certain roads. So Doug Davis is going to come back with us. We're going to have a nice long panel discussion with Doug and our pal Steve Magus, Ohio's bike lawyer, who has been on with us before talking about that. And I think Doug has got a friend of his who's also a lawyer from California, may be joining us as well to spell out what it is that you'll be able to do, what the future is looking like for e-assist. So it should be an interesting discussion. I'm sure we'll have a lot more on the show as well. So join us next month. It's March 15th, I believe is the date. It should be 2 p.m. again, Eastern time. So as a reminder, folks, I want you to remember to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube page, give us a thumbs up on that YouTube video that you're watching right now whenever you watch a Laidback Bike Report video. And you can find out more about the Laidback Bike Report by clicking on that little white eye that should appear on many of your screens. It'll take you to the Laidback Bike Report website, where you can find out all kinds of information about what we do and what we have done. All right, how about some thank yous? Very well deserved. First of all, our wonderful crew. I introduced them at the beginning. Let's get some of them on here first of all. There we go. So I want to thank all of my great crew here who worked so hard to put this show together. There we go. You can see all their names now too. And we're going to rotate some more of them in here. Let's get Larry. Is Larry Varney still with us? Yeah, let's get Larry in there too. So guys, thank you all so much for helping us out today with your segments and directing and media and everything that you guys do. It's very much appreciated by me, of course, and I think our viewers as well. So I appreciate that. And, of course, we want to thank Brian Ball and Bent Ryder. Brian's not with us today, but we sure appreciate all the support and promotional help that they give us as well. So, Brian, if you're watching, thanks, bud. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us here at the Laidback Bike Report for this month. I want to thank most of all of you out there for watching our show this and every month. So until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laidback Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.